Hi guys, hope you're all doing well and welcome back to another video on New World. So today I want to cover crafting, from gathering resources to crafting high-end gear, including using Azoth and the perk system. I want to give you everything you need to know. In New World, crafting can be broadly broken down into three separate stages: gathering, refining and crafting, and this is also how they are split in your trade skills. Gathering covers any form of resource collection, from skinning creatures to mining nodes, and the levels within gathering are only going to be determining three things. Firstly, what you can gather. For example, you need mining level 40 to mine a gold node, and below that level you're just flat out unable to mine it. Secondly, the speed at which gathering occurs. The higher your gathering trade skill, the quicker an action is completed. If you mine an iron node at level 5 and then do the same iron node at level 100, you will see a huge speed difference. And finally, it's going to affect the compass at the top of your screen by showing you the location of resources and prey near to you. However, this last one is really pretty irrelevant. Really, once you've got introduced to New World Map, which I've put a link to in the description down below, as this allows you to easily find any and all resource nodes, places, elite zones, and is really a key tool in any crafter's pocket. Refining is then taking those gathered resources and converting them in a town into items that are much more valuable and can ultimately be used in the end crafting products. This is like smelting iron ore into iron bars, and then using that base refined iron bar, combining it with some charcoal to produce a steel bar, or turning raw wolfhide into leather. This is likely to be your first bottleneck, as whilst yes, you can produce tier 2 refined materials right from the start from trade skill 0, it'll be level 50 before you can first refine items into tier 3. On top of that, it requires the town to be sufficiently upgraded. Have the owners been keeping up with the town projects to get those crafting stations upgraded to a sufficient level for what you're trying to create? If not, you may end up having to visit a separate town. Finally, this is probably a good time to point out that every town has its own little mini resource dump. Here in Windswood, it's 4 fibres, and if your company or faction owns the town, then you can harvest here for free materials. Yay! Finally, once you get into tier 3 refining, you'll notice you need to start using reagents. The common ones of these are fairly readily available in chests throughout the world, but if you're wondering what the rarer ones actually do, then they hugely increase the chance of bonus crafting. So, for example, if you use one of the rare ones, it goes up to around 50%, so if you crafted 10 steel bars, you'd end up with likely getting 15. All these refined materials can be then used for crafting. This is where you produce your gear, your weapons, your armour, your tools, and much more. I guess it's probably obvious by this point that every time you move from gathering to refining to crafting, the sort of total amount of resources from each stage goes down. As such, it's really quite easy to level 3 gathering skills, but it's far harder to level 3 crafting skills, so it makes much more sense to try and specialise. If you want to craft bows, then it makes sense for you to specialise in engineering. Particularly if you're in a company as well with others who are perhaps working on different crafting skills, it can really make sense for you each to pick one and you to each specialise in a different area. But for now, I want to move on to a worked example and cover more about Azoth and the crafting perks you can use. I'm now high enough level to equip steel tools. I know they are going to make my gathering much faster. Plus, there are actually some specific perks, such as yield increase, that I'd actually really like to try and get on them. However, for this, not only am I going to need level 50 engineering, I'm also going to need tier 3 steel bars. So that means I'm going to need to be level 50 engineering and level 50 smelting. For the leveling of engineering, I generally found it best to just grind out the lower tier items. They use fewer materials and seem to convey the best XP to resource ratio. With some of the higher stuff, yes, it gives a higher XP rate per item, but it uses double or more of the resources, and so it's just not really worth it. And actually, it really didn't take me very long to get this knocked out and leveled up to 50. I did have to run a few iron gathering runs for materials, and the hemp and wolves that I found along the way provided me with enough of coarse leather and linen, which I just needed in smaller quantities for the crafting. Furthermore, whilst I was gathering and smelting the iron to get the iron bars, that actually leveled my smelting up enough and I surpassed 50, so I can now also craft steel bars. So I now have everything I need to make my steel tools. I also just very quickly want to add in that when crafting, it draws from both your inventory and anything you have in storage at that town. So there's no need to go and grab everything out your storage shed, as it does this automatically in the crafting menu, which is a great time saver. Although, of course, storage is limited to that town. If you have items in Everfall, but you're crafting in Windswood, it will not work. You would have to actually go to Everfall and manually bring those items over to Windswood. But before we go ahead and craft these steel tools, I want to explain the perk system. To take this musket for example, it is a tier 3 item, so it has the possibility to have up to 2 perks. If I have the correct special resource, the little green medals and items and things that you find in the world, then I can pick exactly what I want that first perk to be. For example, in this case I could pick the rough leather beading straps to guarantee what the first perk will be. I've then got 1 perk confirmed, but still only a low chance of getting a gem slot or a second perk on this weapon. That is, unless I add in some Azoth. Now the chance of getting that second perk or second gem slot is almost certain. On any item that you are crafting to keep, something that you want, it's almost always going to be worth spending the Azoth. It is cheap compared to fast travel, and it gives such benefits. If you don't have any special items to add in that you want, if you didn't have the beaded leather straps that you wanted, you can just spend slightly more Azoth and get 2 perks at random. It's just more of a lottery, but it's better than picking a perk and guaranteeing a perk that you don't actually want. So for the steel tools, I don't currently have any usable special resources to add in to help determine that first attribute. Therefore, I am instead going to be spending the 30 Azoth to give me a very high chance of getting both perks during the craft. And success! We got both perks, and actually the random lottery did me pretty proud, as we both got increased yield when skinning, i.e. I'm going to get more rawhide per wolf skinned, and increased XP gain, so my skinning trade skill should now hopefully be levelling up faster. Now I'm going to go and work through the rest of my steel tools to get the full set, and yes, I'm going to be using Azoth on all of them. Okay, so now we have covered perks, Azoth, gathering, refining and crafting, as well as leveling your skills. It really only leaves a few key areas left that I want to cover. And now one of them is going to be using different tiers of resources and factional store items in crafting. So for this, I want to hop over to the outfitting station, where we are going to be crafting a tier 3 bag. And actually, the only tier 3 refined material I require for this is rugged leather, which thankfully I can do. I can still use tier 2 linen and tier 2 iron bars for the other 2 resources. However, we know from crafting our steel tools that we can now craft steel bars. So what if I elect to use them instead of using the iron bars? Well, we can see actually our minimum gear score level goes up, i.e. we are guaranteeing a slightly better bag, a better base level. But better than that, during my iron mining, I was actually lucky enough to get a few random drops of some Fey Iron. If we equip that in the metal slot, then the bag has the potential to go up to 310 gear score from 305, i.e. the best the bag can be is now slightly better. If I had the relevant weaving trade skills, I could also do the same for the cloth to get an even better bag craft. Now obviously the improvement here is small. I'm increasing or decreasing the gear score by a factor of 5 points. So for most crafts this might just not be worth it. In fact, it would probably be easier to just level your crafting trade skills higher, or make use of food to temporarily increase your trade skills. But with an item like this bag, you're required to actually purchase a rune of holding from the factional store, which costs 3,000 faction points. So you really want to be doing all that you can to make this craft the best it will be. So for me, in this case, I'm going to be making use of my Fey Iron to try and get this as the best possible bag. I actually only have one special resource here I can use, which is Tanner's Burden. Actually, for me, this is quite useful as I skin quite a lot, so I'll apply this to the craft. But if you aren't interested in skinning, you could simply leave that off, spend the extra Azoth, and hope you get lucky with the random perk drop giving you something that you actually want. Ultimately, I'm pretty pleased that I picked Tanner's Burden, as the random perk that I got was pretty useless. I don't use arrows, and so it's not really going to benefit me at all. So you have to kind of weigh this up and whether you want to be applying perks depending on what you have and what you want to achieve out of your craft. Finally, I just wanted to touch on crafting for profit. This isn't really the purpose of this guide video, but I just wanted to point out that generally the more specialised you go, the better the profit you can make. Maybe an iron bar will sell for 5 gold, a steel bar for 20 or 25 gold, but that tier 3 bag that we just created, in which we had to invest multiple resources, make use of different trade skills, then we are looking at a price of over 2,000 gold. Since it's an item that is in high demand, everyone wants to be upgrading their bag slots, but very few people can take the time or skill to craft them in the early stages of the game. Of course, we have only touched on the engineering and armour crafting trade skills in this video. There is still weaponsmithing, jewel crafting, arcana, cooking and furnishing, but the principles in this video of what I've taught carry over and should hopefully allow you to craft it away in any of the other skills. And if you do get stuck on anything, just ask in the comments down below and I'll try to get back to you with an answer. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Do subscribe to the channel as we have lots more New World content on the way. And I shall see you guys all on the next one.